Hello everyone. This little video is to describe how to use this worksheet in order to do the behavioral analysis assignment. As you see from the top of the document here, it says DBT Behavioral Chain Analysis Worksheet. DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy and is another type of behavioral therapy that's out there. There are a lot of different varieties designed for different purposes, but many focus on similar types of things. So what is it that you need to do for this assignment? First of all, you need to decide what the behavior is that you want to modify or address. So this can be any kind of bad habit. I'd recommend doing something that's not so intense or severe. So if you've got a bad drinking habit, maybe don't necessarily start with that for this assignment. You certainly can if you want to, but maybe something like sleeping in late or going to bed late or procrastinating your homework or some nervous tic or habit that you have, or just something, anything. It can be whatever you want it to be. Not putting the milk away in the morning after you've had your cereal. Whatever you want the behavior to be. So once you've got this behavior identified for yourself, the next step is to figure out the chain of events that lead to that particular behavior happening. Now, with this sort of behavioral chain analysis, you are really going to need to think about this very carefully and all of the little tiny steps that could possibly lead to this problem behavior. It may not, every single step that you identify may not necessarily happen every time, but they need to be things that often happen or can happen that lead to this problem behavior. So that's what these types of links are. I'll get to that in a second. These are essentially just the different types of factors or vulnerabilities or things that can lead to the problem behavior. So you've got your target behavior up here. First thing to do is describe things in yourself and in your environment that made you vulnerable. So let's say your habit, your target behavior that you want to change is emotional eating. Like maybe you eat too much chocolate or something like that, or ice cream or whatever when you're upset or stressed. So the thing in myself and my environment that made me vulnerable, one of those things might be emotional stress. And that could be related to work or school or family or friends, whatever it happens to be for you. So those would be the things, the vulnerabilities in yourself. I get anxious, and when I get anxious, I eat. I have a hard time not thinking, overthinking that conversation that I had with my friend or my mom or my boss, whatever. And so you write in those ideas. These are the triggers essentially for the bad behavior that comes later. And then you want to identify a specific prompting event. So what is something that actually happened that led to a specific instance of your emotional eating, whether it was a bad grade on a test or a rough day at work, or an argument with your mom or dad, something like that. The next step is to identify actual behaviors and events that eventually lead to the specific problem behavior. Now you want to try to fill in as many of these lines as you can. That may be tough, I understand. It can be really hard to, split things apart and really dig deep in between all of those little instances, but you really want to break it down carefully. And so it'll be something like, I got in a fight with my mom on the phone because she, whatever, I don't know, you can make something up there. I was frustrated, and then I started having some negative self-talk about me and my relationship with my mom. Then I went into my room and shut the door and just stewed about it for a really long time. And then I texted my friend who said a bunch of bad things about my mom and how dare she and you're so right and all this kind of stuff. And I was still feeling really upset, and that didn't necessarily make me feel better. And then I went into the kitchen, and I didn't really have anything that I was looking for, so I just opened the fridge and I grabbed the ice cream or the yogurt or the whatever, and then I sat down at the table with a spoon and started eating. And that was probably only like 5 or 6 different things, and there's like 15 lines here. So you can try to break that down even more if you want to. Over here on to the left of that are all these vulnerability factors, and this is where we get back to these types of links. So you can label all of these actual behaviors and events as actions, body sensations, cognitions, so things that you are thinking, events, and feelings. And so as you list all of the behaviors and events, be mindful of these things up here, particularly the feelings. Behavioral therapy often is criticized for not focusing enough on feelings, and to some extent that may be true, but clearly feelings is on the list, and so we're recognizing that that is a part of your experience. If behavioral therapy isn't focusing enough on feelings, it's often the therapist's fault, not the therapy model's fault. Anyway, list this all out until you get down to the consequences, or rather the problem behavior, emotional eating, consequences and harm. So I don't know, whatever that might be. Feeling worse about myself because I ate a half a gallon of ice cream, or whatever the consequences might be for you. The next step is to then identify a solution analysis, ways to reduce your vulnerabilities at the beginning, ways to prevent that prompting event or that kind of prompting event in the future, and other kinds of alternative behaviors that you could implement at every step of your behavioral analysis chain. This is the tricky part. Splitting up that chain of behaviors is tough. This is really tough. But just try to do the best that you can. Follow the instructions in the assignment that are on D2L, and follow those steps in terms of how much to write here and how much to write here. But this is basically the idea, in terms of first documenting how the behavior comes to happen, and then what you can do to interrupt that chain of events and prevent that target behavior from happening again in the future. This video ended up being a little bit longer than I had expected, but I hope that it helps you complete this behavioral chain analysis worksheet and the behavioral therapy technique assignment if this is one that you've chosen. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.